According to How to Read Novels Like Professor by Thomas C. Foster, narrators have been known to be unreliable and corrupt. But in F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, the narrator, Nick Carraway, is considerably straightforward and honest for the most part, and knows much more than the other characters. So, what we're here to discuss today is why he decided to yield Nick so much information, what his intentions were for the readers, and whether or not it was the most efficient way of depicting the story. First-person narrators are supposed to make the reader feel close to the reader, as Foster mentions in his book on page 51. But in The Great Gatsby by Fitzgerald, readers often feel somewhat distanced from the narrator, Nick, due to his hostility and conceitedness. On page 6, Nick is seen criticizing his friend Tom, as well as his cousin Daisy, when he says, "They drifted here and there unrestfully, wherever people played polo and were rich together." F. Scott, why did you have Nick say this?
I had Nick say that because it adds to the concept that he greatly disapproves Daisy and Tom's wealth and the means by which they choose to spend their time. Tom clearly peaked early in his life, and was spending his time playing polo and visiting his mistress Myrtle, which Nick dislikes. Though the reader does not feel as close to the narrator by doing this way they are able to get a more clear view of how Tom and Daisy decided to live their lives, which is essentially the most unproductive way possible. I decided to have Nick play a more hostile and straightforward role in order to prevent things from being sugar-coated for readers. Also, for them to be able to better understand the plot, especially as conflict begins to arise between the characters.
I can see why you wouldn't want to sugarcoat things for your readers, but doesn't that affect their opinions of Nick? For many readers, this caused them to have an aversion towards him, especially due to his harshness at times, especially towards the other characters. To me, Nick seems unnecessarily rude towards other characters, which makes it difficult to feel sympathy for him.
My intent was not for readers to like or be fond of Nick. I feel that it's not an author's responsibility to create a likable or pleasant narrator. Instead, one that's able to effectively tell the story. Through Nick, readers are able to see the intentions of other characters, since I have them consistently go to him for their secrets.
Scott, you mentioned that you have Nick disapprove of Tom having a mistress, which you had Nick share with the reader, but not with any of the other characters. In How to Read Novels Like Professor, Thomas, you claim that readers should never trust a narrator with a speaking part, because they are deceitful. In The Great Gatsby, Nick is well aware of the affair between Tom and Myrtle, and even spends an entire day with them. It even goes so far as to say the fact that he had one, a mistress, was insisted upon wherever he went. Fitzgerald, you describe here how Tom and Myrtle were known wherever they went, despite the fact that Daisy, his own cousin, did not know of the affair, or at least pretended not to. But Nick, her own cousin, knew of the affair and chose to keep it from her? Why do you have Nick be honest with the reader, but not with his own cousin? And how does this affect the opinion of readers that they have on Nick?
At the beginning of the story, I have Nick say that he is one of the few honest people that he has ever known. But by no means does this mean that he is honest towards other characters, or even himself half the time. I developed Nick more this way in order to create a unique dynamic for him that would intrigue readers more. They go into the story believing that they should not trust Nick, but as they read on, they realize that he is correct about multiple suspicions, therefore allowing them to put more trust in him. The main characters, Daisy, Tom, Jordan, and Gatsby, chose to confide in Nick and reveal their secrets, of which I have Nick relay to readers. I chose to not have him expose characters to each other, for it allows the plot to unfold in an unconventional way, as well as allowing for better comprehension for the reader at times.
First-person narrators are supposed to be honest to everyone but the reader. That's what makes those novels interesting. I loved The Great Gatsby, but the extent in which you go against the guidelines of first-person narrators is atrocious. Nick knows way too much, and he's not even that interesting. He should be more oblivious, or at least have the other characters stop revealing all of their secrets to him. Literally all of them. I mean, come on. Why does everyone decide to go to Nick, of all people, to reveal
excuse me, you are wrong. Nick is not always honest towards everyone but the reader. Oftentimes, he is quite dishonest with himself, especially when it pertains to women. When Jordan calls Nick out on being a bad driver, Nick rebutes her statement and claims that he is 5 years too old to lie to himself and call it honor. Though it is unclear at the time what he is lying to himself about, I still have him acknowledge the fact that he is indeed lying.